The town hall meeting for the town of Ossining for October 6th, 2015. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening, everybody. And tonight at our town hall meeting, we have 2 items on our agenda, and then, of course, we're here to talk to us about if there is anything. But the first one's very, very exciting. It's a celebration of the town of Ossining residents, which includes the unincorporated area of the town, the village of Ossining, and 91% of the village of Barcliff Manor, who have energized their homes and pocketbooks by taking advantage of home evaluations and completed some, if not all, of the subsequent recommendations resulting in safer homes. That's the title of the agenda item. So we'll start now. Okay. So good evening. Let me stand up. Good evening, and welcome to the Town of Ossining Town Hall meeting for October 6th. Tonight we begin with a special recognition event. Sorry about that. It's our first Energize Ossining event for all of Ossining. And again, whether you live in the unincorporated area, the village of Barcliff Manor, or the village of Ossining. We wouldn't have made it here today without the help of a fantastic group of volunteers called Green Ossining, a group which was founded by Catherine Borgia during her term as Town of Ossining Supervisor, and was energized, if you don't mind me using that word over and over again tonight, by our chairwoman, Susie Ross. Green Ossining has worked tirelessly to organize and promote events focused on protecting and preserving the environment, and you'll hear a lot more about that in a few minutes. We want to thank the members of Green Ossining and all the local environmental groups for all their hard work, not only on this project, but on educating us on various ways we all contribute to a greener world, many of which you will hear again about shortly. Energize New York is an organization that evolved over the years within many municipalities throughout Westchester and beyond. We are especially proud of our accomplishments for Energize Ossining, with over 117 homes upgraded through the Energize Ossining program, the town's comprehensive home energy efficient program, where we are in the forefront of proactive municipal programming in this New York State. The homes that took advantage of this program have a combined savings of approximately $198,900 in energy costs per year, correct? Imagine how that number could grow once more homeowners catch on. The goal of the program is to reduce the amount of energy wasted in our homes and businesses, which will result in reduced greenhouse gas emissions. The homeowners and business folks here tonight are just some of the 117 who have taken advantage of not only the comprehensive evaluation, but vetted contractors. More on that later. We want to congratulate all the energized homeowners. Thank you for your leadership in reducing the community's energy waste and for helping the town reach our sustainability goals. The Energize program, as well as the Solarize program, which we were part of last winter and spring, demonstrate the commitment of the town and villages to bring programs to the residents and business owners that will improve their lives and their bottom lines. However, the active support of our residents and volunteers to develop these ideas makes the programs even more successful. Let me introduce Mayor Victoria Garrity of the Village of Ossining, who is also a member of Green Ossining and serves as our liaison for Energize New York. She has been part of the program from the start and will tell you all about the great work that the Green Ossining is doing in our community, and then she will introduce others.
Thank you, Supervisor Donnelly. Yes, I'm Victoria Garrity. I'm your mayor, but before I was even in elected office, I was active with environmental groups, particularly the Village Environmental Advisory Council, the Town Environmental Advisory Council. We met together with Green Ossining back in 2011, and we had a visit from one of the representatives who was working with just the pilot program for the Energize program. They piloted it in Bedford, and we invited them to come to speak to all the environmental groups in Ossining, and we said, hey, we are ready. We have people on the ground who are ready to volunteer and help bring this message out to the community, and that's really what they were looking for. And so Ossining was the first community after the pilot to start with the Energize program, and we kicked it off in 2011. We started organizing, and then in 2012, we really started going into homes. And in a moment, I'm going to introduce you to, I'll bring up Trustee John Codman, who is one of our guinea pigs, and we used him as an example. He volunteered his home to be an example, and so he was one of our first homes to go through the Energize program here in Ossining, and it was great to have him as our guinea pig. And I'm sorry that Susie Ross is not able to be with us today, because she is really the poster child. At the time that the program started, she lived in Briarcliff. She had a 4,000 square foot home that she energized, and she now lives in the village of Ossining, and she's already energized her home, and she only moved in a couple of months ago. So she's an excellent example of somebody who recognizes the value of this, and I'm very pleased to be in a room full of so many people who also have recognized that value. So I know that, Lauren, you're going to get up and tell us more about the program, but can I introduce John and just have him share his story for a moment, because we've got a lot of great stories that people could tell. You'll be our guinea pig here.
Thank you very much. I was fortunate to be, one of the first folks here in the village to get involved with the program, and it was really an eye-opener. I have a home that was built in 1910, and much to my shock and amazement, I found out I had no insulation in the walls. And but through the program, through the analysis, through all the work that was done, I was able to completely weatherize the home, put insulation in, really tighten up the home, and then I made a conversion from oil to gas. And the net is that my home is much more comfortable. It's much quieter. It's a tight house. I have a great heating system. It's the hot water system, with the steam water. And it's what I ended up doing was going from oil to gas. And that's, I think, where I really realized how much really the carbon footprint of an old oil furnace is shocking. Not only are you losing all that heat up the stack, but all the pollution that's going. And when I converted to gas, I have a gas burner that's 97% efficient, and the waste product is water vapor. So I really reduced my carbon footprint in a huge way, and the efficiency that I have achieved is amazing. Between my energy bill for my home, including the loan which I took to do all the work, this winter was $600. That's the highest amount I paid for all my energy costs. That heated my home, that ran my dryer and my gas stove, and ran all my electricity. So that's amazing, because I could have spent easily over $1,000 this winter just on oil. So it's a great program. It's still going on, and I think that's the good news. There's still an opportunity to get involved, to have the analysis done. It's either at no or very little cost to do the analysis, and the recommendations are really straightforward. There's low-hanging fruit. You could spend a little money, or you can do a lot like I did, and get even more benefit. So I'm so pleased to have been involved. I'm so pleased the program is here. So please get into it if you haven't done it yet. Thanks.
Great. And it's time to invite Lauren Broyce from the Energize New York program. I'm so pleased that you're here with us. And I should tell folks, I neglected to mention what is the relationship between the municipalities and Energize. Both the town and the village of Ossining, were charter members of the Northern Westchester Energy Action Consortium, and that was the original nonprofit that Energize was sort of born from. Is that accurate to say? So Energize is now its own independent nonprofit organization that serves the member municipalities. And so we are really grateful to have this partnership, and they make it so much easier for the residents of our communities to be able to take advantage of this program. So Lauren, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming out tonight. I'm so happy to see so many energized homeowners, and also hopefully people watching TV can see us on the TV show and learn about energizing too. So I am a volunteer with Green Ossining, and I also work at Energize. I'm the assistant director of the residential program. And just to reiterate what Victoria and Sue were saying, we're here tonight to commend the 117 Austining homeowners that have energized their homes, and I'm happy to say I think 15 or 16 families are here tonight. So after the speeches and the awards are presented, please join us outside. We have some brownies from Wobble Cafe and some drinks. We can chat about your experience and check out some case studies and other materials that we have. So before we get to the fun part of the awards and the brownies, I just want to review a couple of points about the Energize program. So as most of you know, 25% of the money people spend on energy bills is typically wasted through insufficient insulation, poor air sealing, and outdated heating and cooling equipment. So these problems can be easily addressed by a trained and accredited home performance contractor, someone that works with NYSERDA and Energize New York, like Tom Brown, who we have, one of our contractors here from Bright Home tonight. They also sponsored the brownies. So when we address these fundamental flaws in our homes, in the case of wasted energy, we get to the root of many of the problems that we face as a community and a nation. So by eliminating wasted energy in our homes, we have really great potential to reduce air pollution that can cause asthma and often fouls our water and land resources. We also are reducing oil importation that sends dollars to potentially hostile nations and also away from our community. We reduce the budget impact that volatile fuel prices can have on families. We're also improving our community affordability, helping residents and seniors to stay in their homes. We're increasing the amount of good local construction jobs, and we're also improving our building stock to support property values. So because the village and the town have taken such amazing steps in promoting the Energize New York program to address energy waste, we've accomplished such a great number in Austining with 117 homes, one of the best municipalities in northern Westchester, and we're nearing 1,000 homes in all of northern Westchester that have taken the steps to energize. So we're saving quite a bit of money, not only in Austining, but about $1 million annually throughout all of northern Westchester. So that's money that would have been spent on oil and natural gas bills that's now staying in the local economy. So once again, thank you so much for not only thinking about your own comfort and your pocketbook, but also helping the community. So just to review, when you guys come up for your award, you'll be receiving a certificate, and you'll also be receiving a little seal. It's a window cling that you could display in your window. I encourage you to put it up, and you can tell your neighbors about it. They might notice the seal when they come by. But also that seal is great if you choose to sell your house, display it, and show it to your real estate agent. Most of our real estate agencies in the local area are trained about the Energize program, and they know that a house that's energized is more valuable, and they totally can sell it in that way. When Susie Ross sold her first Energized house, that was one of the leading things that they used to sell the house. You'll also be receiving a guide to your energized home, which has information about a rebound effect, and it also has a list about ways you can get involved with the program if you choose so. So I'd like Sue and Victoria to come back up, and we can get started with the awards. Yay. And when you get your award, please stay at the front of the room so we can take a group shot.
Okay, so I have been nominated the name pronouncer. If I do you wrong, feel free to take a look at mine and beat me up a little bit.
Never get those right.
Yeah.
I still don't get it.
Okay, so first we have Peter Aaron. We have the Asti family. Marilyn Berman. John Codman III. Lori Lee Dixon.
So, we used to, at every single board meeting, John did it first and then I took it up. We would remind everybody to go to energizeasning.org to learn about it, and Lori Lee then said, I'm going to do it. And we're very pleased. How about you? Welcome. She's our corporation counsel, so she's at every meeting hearing us sing the praises.
Carl and Patricia Gonsalves. The Guevara and Wailegala family. Lynn and John Caritas. George Klein. Bielka Krupp and Henry Fauché.
You're making this round? Yeah.
Kent Leo. Benny Linneman. Lauren Morrissey. Willie Owens. Mandana Reziana. The Silverstein family. Ann Visconti. Mary Yost.
I didn't realize you had official business here.
Just going to hang out.
Wow, this is so great. If we could take a big group shot, that would be so perfect. So if some people want to stand on the stage and some on the floor, we'll get all squished together. That would be so great. And come on up, let's use this Energize banner. Yeah. If anyone else has an Energize phone and wants to come up to be in the picture, feel free. Yeah. Okay, let's squish it even more. If some people on that end want to come down over here. Tom, we're going to be in the picture. Who would like to?
How about Lauren?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Come on, yeah, Lauren has to.
Be quick. We're all friends.
You see everybody?
Yes.
Thanks again, everyone. I hope you'll come outside for some brownies.
I hope I can do it.
Anything to do with
We're going to continue with our meeting. We'll wait till everybody, we've learned our lesson about not waiting until everybody leaves the room. I know. I think people that came for other reasons are leaving town. going to have a project update for our Austin reassessment, and I'll hand it over to Fernando Gonzalez, who's our town assessor, again, for that same group of municipalities, the Village of Austin, 91% of the Village of Briarcliff Manor, and the unincorporated area. Fernando.
Thank you. My name is Fernando Gonzalez. I'm the Town of Austin assessor. Thank you again for coming out once again to get an update on this very important project. We will have a very short presentation explaining what has been done, what we're doing now, but most importantly, what we are going to do in the future in order to complete this project. We have Melissa Baird from Tyler Technologies who will be doing the presentation, and then we will be glad to answer your questions.
I'm sorry, I didn't bring brownies. So we're about a year and a half into this project. It's been a really long road. We still have about 6 months left, actually a little bit longer than that. We're going to mail out the notices in March, so there is still quite a bit to do, but we are starting to get towards we're talking values now, so we're working towards what everybody wants to know, and that's what's going to happen, what's the impact on your assessment and your tax bill. But again, we won't be doing that until March, but at least we're starting to get an idea of what's going on, what's happened, where some of those shifts are. So just a quick review, why do we do a reassessment? So some of the reasons are fairness. We want to make sure that people pay just their fair share, no more, no less. We want to make sure that we have equity, so we want everybody on the same playing field. So we're going to appraise everybody as of the same date of value. Anybody who's had appeals in the past, whether their appeals were 20 years ago, 20 months ago, everybody gets treated exactly the same. We're going to use the same models. We're going to use a computer model, which is new for Austining. And so everybody's going to be equitable. And then we're also striving for transparency. We want to make this process as easy to understand and as available to anybody who's interested. So we've done a lot of meetings such as this. We have a website that has a wealth of information on it, and we will continue to update you as we move along in the process. So reassessment is revenue neutral. So one of the fears is that everybody's taxes are going to go up, and that is just not the reality. We have the same amount of money that's required to fund the town, and we just redistribute how that gets paid to each individual. The rule of thumb in our industry is a third, a third, a third. 1/3 goes down, 1/3 stays the same, and 1/3 will go up. It depends on what the market has done over the last 50 years or whatever it's been since our last reassessment. So that's just, a guideline that some of the experiences in the past. In Scarsdale, it was 25% went up and 75% stayed the same or went down. So it really depends on the individual jurisdiction and what the market has done. This is our timeline. So you can see we're pretty far into it. Where we are right now is final field review. So it's October. So we're expecting that process to last through the end of November. And then we do a lot of checking, looking at information, looking at old assessments versus new assessments. We start looking at the tax shift analysis in preparation for notifying all of the taxpayers of what the new assessment and what the impact is on your potential impact on your taxes are. So we do have a little bit of ways to go, but we're starting to get there. So sales information is very important to us. How do we determine what the fair market value of your property is? We look at sales of properties that are similar. So a very important step of our process is to verify and validate all of the sales that have occurred in Austining in the 2-year period of July 1st, 2013 to July 1st, 2015. So we have all of those sales now because it's now October. July 1st, 2015 is that moment in time we're trying to capture. So we will certainly look at sales that occur after that, but the ones that were used for our efforts in our modeling were from the 2-year period from 2013 to 2015. If there was any shift in the market during that time, we'll make adjustments to the older sales to make sure that they reflect the current market value. And This is the time frame that we're trying to capture. So it is a little bit in the past, so just to give you an idea of what we're trying to do. So these are just some average sale prices. They are averages. There's probably really low ones in there, really high ones in there, and those are the number of sales. We had just under 400 sales to work with. So our valuation model. So we do use an automated valuation model. So if you've ever been on Zillow or Realtor.com or any of those websites that give you an idea of what your property is worth, it's the same type of thing. We collected all that data from all of you when we visited your homes. We did the measurements, we counted the rooms. That data is then used, it's put into our computerized model, and it generates a fair market value. And the way that we get those models to work in your market is we analyze that sales data. So we test our models against the sales. That's the properties, we know what the value is. The sale price is the market value, and then we use those exact same models to value everybody else's property. So for residential properties, we do cost. So what does it cost to build a house today? And then we depreciate it depending on its age and its condition. So if a house has been fully renovated, even if it's 100 years old, it's going to be worth more than a house that hasn't been renovated that's 100 years old. So that is one of our approaches. The second approach is the sales comparison. So if you've ever had an appraisal done on your house, those are the exact same two approaches that you will see, but chances are there's far more focus on that sales comparison. So what we do is the same thing. We develop comparability. So what makes two houses similar? Location certainly, size, style, and then our computer selects the ones that are most comparable and adjusts the sale prices to reflect the data that the subject is. So you'll see the 5 comparables just like you would if you've ever had an appraisal done to sell your house or a mortgage. And then our reviewers will take a look at those. There are certainly going to be properties that there are no comparable sales for. And for those types of properties, we have to use the cost approach. So we do have those 2 approaches so that we can value every type of property. Some of the ones that we have to use cost on are properties that are in very, very poor condition because we don't have any sales of houses in very, very poor condition. Other ones may be very unique houses. If we have a house that's 10,000 square feet and I don't have any sales of houses of 10,000 square feet, then we have to rely on the cost approach for those types of properties. However, the vast majority of properties in Ossining will be valued using the sales comparison approach. Now, there is one residential type property that does not fall into that, and that's condominiums. Condominiums, we use the income approach and the market approach. We do not do a cost approach because the way the state law works in New York, if it's considered a residential property, we do comparable sales, and we only use sales when available within a specific complex. So we're only going to compare a unit within the complex. So if you have sales that are outside that, we're not going to use those. We're certainly not going to use sales of single-family homes that have land to value condos. The second method that we use for condominiums is the income approach, and we treat them like rental properties. We have been collecting rents on condominiums. We've been able to gather some data for a lot of the complexes, and that will be the second method that we use if it's treated like a commercial property. So where we are doing our final field review, and what that consists of is we have our experienced appraisers. They go out and they're looking for the accuracy of the data. Because we're using a computerized model, data accuracy is going to lead us to accurate value. So we've done a lot of quality control over the course of the project. We've asked you all to participate in that when we mailed out your data mailers, and hopefully you've returned those to us. If you haven't, please do. But we're still going to go out and review it again. This review is done from a public way. So the only reason why someone will come to your house at this point is if they see something that's wrong, if there's some error with the data that we have to correct. We take a look at the factors. So a lot of people talk about, well, you know, I have a gas station right next to my property. Does that impact value? It absolutely does. This is the opportunity for our appraisers to consider all of those things that impact value. So there are some things that are positive. Maybe you're right on a golf course, or there are negative things. Traffic, high traffic street. So those are some of the things that our appraisers are looking for as they're doing their drive-by review. And they want to make sure that all of those things are being consistently applied, because we want our assessments to be equitable. So if this property's next to the gas station and this property's next to it, we want them to have equitable assessments and the same types of adjustments. We want to make sure we have consistent application. Our job would be a lot easier if everything was a piece of data that everybody would come to the same answer. So if we measure a house, it's 1,000 square feet. You measure it, it's 1,000. You measure it, it's 1,000. That makes it easy. But there are a few subjective factors that we have to deal with because that's the reality of the real estate market. Some of those things are the quality of construction and the overall condition of the property. So those subjective factors should be consistently applied. And so by doing this review where they're going property by property by property, they're able to make sure that we are consistently and equitably assessing people that have similar properties. We also want to make sure that the sales that were selected by the computer are truly comparable. So we have a couple of options if they're not, and one of them would be to use a different approach, or we may try to find other sales that are more comparable by selecting them by hand. And then we want to select the approach that best reflects fair market value. Sometimes that will be the cost approach. Most often it will be the sales comparison. So I have up here, this is available on our website. I am going to give you the website address at the end of it. These are the individuals. This is their car information. So if you see one of them kind of lurking down your street, and they'll stop in front of your house, stop in front of the next house. These are the people that are doing this work, so you know if you see one of them. They do have IDs on them, but they generally don't leave their car. So the most important thing I think up there is their car information. So some of the exciting technology that we've introduced, we have this computerized system, which is new for Ossining. Everything was done manually using cards. They did have a computerized system that tracks some of the data and the assessment certainly, but this is a piece of new technology that we did. It's sketch validation. So one of the things that allows our appraisers to know if the data is accurate is we took orthophotography that was shot within the last year, and then those green shapes that you see, those are the sketches that we have in our computer. So this one right here is yellow. That means that it's off a little bit. So one of the decks, the porches, something doesn't line up right. All the green ones, all of those are ones where the sketch matches what was with the orthophotography. So that's another quality check that we're doing, and allows the reviewer to see if the data is accurate without actually having to study the sketch, which is difficult to see. You can only see the front of it from the right-of-way, typically. So this is one of the tools that we're using out in the field, and it also makes sure we have the right property, because that's just the selected property. So as we're driving down the street, we have an idea of where the house sits on the lot, if there's any adverse topography, if it's an odd-shaped lot, and as we move down the street, it automatically goes to the next property, so we always know we have the right property, and it brings up automatically the property card with all of your data. So this is another, we know we're at the right property. We're able to see very quickly all of the things that could possibly impact your property. Then we also have some of the factors that we can change, and what this allows us to do is to put this back into the system without someone keying it, which means that we have far less errors and it's far more efficient. So that is where we are. We'll be reviewing for the next 2 months, so check back on our website, and if you have any concerns about the people, you can certainly call Fernando's office, you can call my office to verify that these people are who we say they are, and our website is mmrc.tylertech.com. Any questions?
If you have a question, please go up to the mic, give your name and address, and see who we are. He has a mic.
So Pat Yost, this is actually a question on the commercial property for down at the waterfront. I was wondering what's the status of the commercial properties because we haven't received any.
We've worked on, there are a couple, we value the commercial properties using the income approach. So we are collecting and analyzing the income and expense information. We've collected all of the data. We're about, I would say, 3 weeks away from starting the review on that portion of it. So we do the two approaches the same way. We do a cost approach and an income approach. So we gather the information from any of the property owners that have submitted income and expense information. Again, if you're a commercial property owner, if you haven't done that, it's absolutely critical that you do that, not only to establish anything that impacts your specific property, but it also allows us to understand the specific market in Ossining. There are a lot of places where we can get data, but they are regional. So Westchester County is, you know, a unique region that Ossining may or may not fit well into. So we want to have the most specific information we can have. We also do some analysis of rates that we can use to capitalize the income, and we build those same models just like we would on a residential property. So we've taken that for the cost approach. We don't have a lot of information. Residential properties, we can get a lot of information about you know, what a new house costs to build and what it sells for. Commercial properties, there are so many different types of properties. There's office buildings, warehouses, manufacturing, retail properties that we don't have enough sales to be able to do that like we can with residential properties. So we use Marshall and Swift, which is a cost service that is well respected in our industry. So what we've done is we've already calibrated those cost models. We're working on land. We have, I think, 3 commercial land sales in all of Ossining. So that's where we are. We're about 3 weeks away from 3 weeks to 4 weeks before we start reviewing commercials.
Okay, we should start.
Okay.
So does anybody have any more questions on the reassessment update? Well, thank you very much, you two. It was very informative. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh.
Hi, Dana Lipper. I was just from Village of Ossining. I was wondering if you could just go back to the timeline in the slide and just could you talk about a little bit of the after the next step again and what the public process is for review and when people can have some input and then when the actual changes get voted in and if they are approved and then you know when they would actually go into effect.
All right, I'll talk about the first part of that. I'll let Fernando answer the second part of that. We will disclose the impact notices on or around March 1st of next year. On that notice, there will be information on how to schedule a review with an appraiser from my company. This is an informal review. We hope that anybody that has issues with their assessment will take advantage of it because a lot of times we can resolve issues. And unlike some of the formal reviews, we have the ability to change properties of people that didn't come in. So if there's something that, you know, if we have a whole street come in, maybe there was something that we weren't aware of, some development that's going to happen in the future that people believe affect their value, and it allows us to change all the people that are affected. So, you know, it benefits us a great deal if you do have an issue to come in and take advantage of that informal review. And you don't need to pay for an appraisal. If you have a recent appraisal, that would be great. We'll take that information. Got pictures of your house, maybe you feel like we didn't get your condition right, or if you feel like you haven't been assessed equitably with some of your neighbors that have similar properties. So it doesn't take a lot of effort to come in and let us know, and if you've got some feedback, we're open to that, certainly. So that process is going to be March and April of 2016. Everybody that attends the hearing or whose assessment was changed as a result of the hearings, whether you came in or not, will be notified again. And then the tentative assessment roll is June 1st, and I'll let Fernando talk about the rest of the process.
After the informal review by Tyler, you will still have available to you the mandated review or the review that is available to you by law, which is the grievance process. In the town of Boston, grievance day is the third Tuesday in June. This past year was June 17. I believe next year is earlier, June 16. So you will still have that available to you, where you can submit a grievance and you can present, if you would like to make a presentation to the Board of Assessment Review, you may do so, and then you will have the court. If you still feel that the review process through the Board of Assessment Review did not satisfy you, you can still file a small claim with the court, or if it's a commercial property, you can file an Article 7 certiorari, which is filed with the court. The SCAR, the Small Claim Assessment Review, or the Article 7 certiorari, you would have to file it after 30 days after the filing of the final roll, which is September 15. Those are the dates. All this information, by the way, is posted on our website. This review process, there is a pamphlet with all this information and the dates available to you.
Fernando, can you just go a step further and explain when you're going to bring it to the town board and the whole process, right? You have to get approval from the town board.
Yeah, the mandated process to have the reassessment certified by the state, there is a timeline which we will be presenting to the town board at the beginning of the year. This process basically leads to the approval of the reassessment by the town board. This current process that we are undergoing now is under the review of the state. The state is involved at the meetings. They're aware of what we're doing. They have access to the data. They will be conducting their own models and testing in order to certify the roll to be 100% of full value. So this whole process is under state review, and the process by which the entire reassessment is adopted is adopted by the town board, begins at the beginning of the year, where we have certain dates that we have to meet and request to the state, and that whole process will be presented to the town board early in the year. I would like to start as early as possible in January.
Could you just also, one more question, talk about what the impact in some of the other municipalities that have gone through reassessment has been on the SCARs and the tax certs moving forward, and what the impact is on the bottom line for the municipalities and school districts?
Well, one of the main reasons why we have undertaken this project is because, as you know, municipalities and school districts are saddled with very high settlements, which creates very high refunds, which basically is very difficult for them to have a somewhat stable budget process. So because of this backlog of certiorari cases due to not having an updated assessment roll, the town determined that a reassessment was necessary. Initially the first year, because of course the 1/3 of the people whose assessment has been very low and now are going to be increased, we will experience somewhat a higher percentage of grievances filing. However, the experience is that the settlement or the adjustments as a result are much less, because the values are updated and they're based on current data and market, on the current market. So while there will be more processing of grievances, the end result as far as adjustment to the total assessed value, taxable assessed value, will be less. The intent is to maintain the roll at 100%, as accurate as possible as far as in tune with the market, so that we don't create this backlog of certiorari where we continue to have all these refunds, and we have cases that pile up for years and years, and then all of a sudden the school district and the municipalities have to deal with this very large refund.
You need to go up to the mic, please, sir.
Please go to the mic.
Go.
Give us your name.
My name is Carl Young. I live in the village of Ossining. I have a curiosity to visualize Ossining township versus the village. In other words, is there a map that shows the geographical area for the village of Ossining and town of Ossining? So,
Yeah, if I understand your question correctly, the town of Ossining is the umbrella government, and the town of Ossining is comprised of the village of Ossining, the unincorporated area of the town, and 91% of the village of Briarcliff Manor.
well,
So
You are in the town of Ossining, sir.
He wants a map, yeah. Is there a
I don't
map?
see a map that tells the distinctions. Like if I see a property or a house, I can place on the map and find out, or when I go, whether this house is in the town of Ossining,
Yes.
or whether it's in the village of Ossining.
you can go to the town of Ossining website, the assessor's page, click on the GIS, and then enter your address, and the property will come up, and you can click the map, and you will see the address and all the information. And the map will show you like a picture of a tax map, and then you can have an aerial view, which will show you basically what you see on Google Earth.
Can you repeat the website? I want to write it. Town of Ossining.
TownofOssining.com. On the left-hand side, the assessor's page. To the gentleman with the commercial property question, the commercial data collection has been pretty much completed. You can go onto the tyler.mmrc.com and enter your address or your parcel ID, and you can see the data that has been collected on your commercial property. You can see a sketch also of the property, so you can check for your square footage and the kind of use that has been collected.
John Perillo, 72 Howell Street, Ossining, New York. It was stated before that roughly 25% of the evaluation properties have gone up and 75% remained the same. In my
That was
conversation,
in Scarsdale.
And it
Scarsdale,
didn't-
New York?
It remained the same or went down?
25% went up and 75 remained the same.
Or went down.
Or went down.
But overall, in my conversation with the officials that have gone through this process, 25% is low.
Yeah, that's actually very atypical. Scarsdale is not a typical community, though. They don't have a lot of commercials, so
But
it's just an example of a community that's in Westchester County that had a reassessment similarly.
But I think that it's not fair, because we're talking about Ossining, town of Ossining, to use a lowball figure regarding Scarsdale. So when do you think this will be shaped up to where, before this is enacted, if it's ever enacted, that you can let the people know exactly what the percentage is?
We're going to do that tax shift analysis like we talked about after the first of the year. So between January to March 1st, when we disclose all that, that's when we start firming that up. So that's when we'll have that information. So we have to make sure that every property's been reviewed. We've analyzed all that information, got rid of any outliers that we can, and that's when we can start talking about where those shifts occurred and what that distribution is. We don't know it. And as I said, a third is the typical. Mamaroneck had exactly that. So that's what we expect, but every market is absolutely different. So Scarsdale is just an example of a community that was very different.
Okay.
So we won't know until after the first of the year.
So when you state revenue neutral, that may apply to a certain community. it may not apply to the town of Austin.
It applies to every community because the amount of taxes that get collected is going to remain the same. Now, the budget changes every year because it changes every year. But if you take this budget versus this budget, that amount of money has to be raised. How that gets distributed among everyone is how it gets distributed. That's what changes. So the reassessment doesn't increase the amount of money that the town collects. It simply redistributes what is collected. So the budget is the budget and it's independent of the assessments that are done. So the relationship between an assessment and the budget is a tax rate. And so the school has a tax rate, the town has a tax rate, the village has a tax rate. So those two things work in conjunction, but they're independent of each other. So the reassessment alone does not raise the amount of revenue, it just redistributes whether you may go up 10% and he goes down 10%, but at the end of the day, it all balances out, it all evens out.
Yeah, I have to beg to differ from you, from my conversations of other communities, municipalities that have gone through this process. So I'm interested to know that when you kind of shape this up for the town of Austin, how that fares out, because my conversations with officials say that it does not. What's the recourse of a person that has their house assessed at a certain rate that equals a certain dollar amount, and then the person sells the house for a lot less than what he's been paying taxes on? Is there a recourse on that?
I'm just going to talk, I'll let Fernando speak specifically, but we tried to capture a value as of the moment in time. If the market stays stable, then a sale a year from now would be adequate evidence that our assessment is too high. If the market has changed dramatically, which it can, we've seen some very large fluctuations in the market back in 2008 and more recently, so it depends on what the market does. So if the market is changing, if either going up or going down dramatically, then that sale price is simply an indication of a different market. And if we were to change a single property, we've now created an inequity because we're not using the same market for everybody else's property. So it really kind of depends. I hate to say like that, but if the market is completely stable, there's no change, then it could be an indication that it was overassessed. But if the market has changed at all in the time period from July 1st, 2015 to when this person appeals it, then it just doesn't apply. And I'll let Fernando talk a little bit about whether the board would consider that.
Yeah, I understand the process, what we can do as a property owner with the grievance and the certiorari. I think my question wasn't maybe not that clear. I understand that without the reassessment, you can reassess people's homes based on comps. Am I correct? In a certain area?
No.
No.
Under the current system, the only time that we can reassess a property is if the property owner gets a building permit and changes the inventory or the physical condition and size of the house, then we can adjust the assessed value
for any improvements.
For any improvement. But let's say, for example, if your property is assessed at 400,000 and you sell it for 500 under the current system, I cannot go ahead and change it, even though we know that the fair market value is 500 because you just sold it.
So with that said, what about the reverse? If it's assessed for 400,000 and it's sold for 100,000 less?
No, there is no recourse after the fact. Every time there is an assessment change on a property, we send a notice to the homeowner prior to the tentative roll, which is when we publish the new values for the new roll. At that point, we're telling the homeowner, because let's say, for example, you took out this building permit, added 1,500 square feet, now your assessment is whatever, $50,000 more. That will give you the opportunity that if you think that that's not fair and reasonable, and the new assessed value does not reflect the market, it'll give you the opportunity and the time required by law. I think we have to do it at least 10 business days prior to grievance day. It'll give you the opportunity to file a grievance. If you miss the opportunity to file a grievance, then you cannot do anything this year. You have to wait until the next grievance period, which is the following June.
Okay.
So there is no recourse after the fact.
You mentioned the people that are in the field. I guess they're, what, appraisers of some sort? What are their qualifications or certifications?
Some states have, like Connecticut has certifications for mass appraisal people. New York does not. So,
So am I to understand?
I'm not done answering.
Okay.
So Edward is a certified general appraiser. He's worked for us. He has many years of appraisal experience. He started with us on this project. Gink Ruby has 35 years of mass appraisal experience. Ian Fuller has 5 years of mass appraisal. Ryan Zuck has 8 years. Steve Bessio has 30 years of mass appraisal experience. So all of the people that we have currently reviewing have years of experience, and you have to understand mass appraisal is very different than fee appraisal. We have to appraise every property, so we're doing 8,000 properties, we're not just doing one. So the process is different. We use, as I said, a valuation model that's computerized. It's a process that just is different from your fee appraisal. So all of these people are highly qualified.
I'm not taking away from their ability or their experience. My question was that the people that are going out to some 10,000 parcels and filling out their report and handing it back into your company, you're telling me that they don't have certification of being an appraiser. I would assume that, for instance, Fernando, you must have some certification of being an assessor. Okay? It would be like a doctor having a degree to practice medicine, or a lawyer having a law degree. There are people, paralegals, that are very qualified in doing a lot of the medical terms, and people of that nature. So my question is that who is checking these people? Is there somebody that actually signs off on this, being that they're not certified?
There is no certification for mass appraisers, so there's no ability for us to get a certification that doesn't exist. I don't believe that being a fee appraisal makes you qualified to do mass appraisal. So these people don't go out and do a report. They're not going out there and doing a report like a fee appraiser does. They're verifying information that was produced by a computerized model, which is why it's called mass appraisal. The reason that we do mass appraisal for jurisdictions is because it costs a fraction of what a fee appraisal does. So you're not paying $300–400 for every property in town. You're paying a fraction of that amount, and that is part of why we do mass appraisal using a computerized model, so that it's less costly, and it's more equitable, it's more consistent. I can send out 3 mass appraisers fee appraisers to the same property and not get the same value. But if I have a computer do it, I'm going to get the same value every single time. So mass appraisal is a different process. It requires different skills, and it's simply different than a fee appraiser. So, I think there's a lot of careers that don't require a specific certification. It doesn't mean that you're not qualified.
No, but I'm still stuck on that, that you're...
So we've been going through this process. The other steps that we had was we went to each and every house. If you let the people in, or you let them measure your house, they reviewed and they created your file. These are the people that are checking on the file. I want to make something else perfectly clear. This is a neutral revenue system. Your assessor's file does not have anything to do with the budget that a town board or a school board create. What happens then is how is that money, we're gonna come out with our budgets for the 2016 years in the town, and the Village of Ossining happens to do it in this time period too. And then it gets shifted around to the different, everybody gets their portion of that tax. So don't make any mistake, and what I will do is I will get in touch with Mamaroneck and Scarsdale, and I will get statements from those supervisors on how this was neutral revenue. Okay, so I don't want that to go out there and get confused or anyone to get misled. This is a revenue neutral function that we're doing here. As far as these mass appraisers are concerned, it is what it is. This is one of many, many steps that have been taken already. If you let people into your house and you let them measure your yard, or you did one or the other, then you took your data mailer, you participated in the program all along, then you are then you know where you are. I let them in my house. I did everything. I looked at my mailer, my data mailer. I sent it back. It happened to be right. Others were not right. They were fixed. If they were completely different than what they actually had in their house, it could be that they didn't let the people into their home, or they weren't home when they went to there. So sometimes it's when they're not home. So then you had a right to, you can still probably call them and say, listen, my data mailer is not right. So there's a lot of safeguards through this whole system. This is only to have fair and equitable taxation. And so unless because otherwise we're going to go around in circles. So John, do you have another question?
No, I just want to be clear. You have mass appraisers that gather some information and then load it into a computer model, and that gives you a computation of...
No, a data collector is just that, a data collector. They're not appraisers. So the people that were out measuring and listing the houses, some of these people did commercial properties, but for the most part, our appraisers are just that, they're appraisers. You know, we had a statistician who has a PhD and is one of the most respected individuals in our industry, did the modeling in this town. He isn't a certified appraiser, but I would bet that there's no better person in this entire industry to do the modeling effort. So I think that I'm proud of the people that are on my staff and the experience we bring to this town. So you know, I stand by our product. Now, ultimately, we have standards that we have to meet. They are international assessing standards that tell us whether a model is performing adequately. Fernando and his staff have been very, very involved in the valuation effort. They're giving us the local flavor that we need that says, hey, this street's a little too high, this one's a little too low. So they're very involved in the effort. And again, the state has been to every single monthly meeting that we have. They will validate and certify that the effort that we've done meets those standards. So I think that there are a whole slew of checks to make sure that we have done the best job we can. Will it be perfect? No. But it'll be the best job that we're able to do with a really highly qualified and stellar staff, honestly.
And Melissa, please explain to the audience that we have monitors too.
Yes, we do. We also have a monitor that has been involved in checking whether every process that we have, our data collection process, our data miller process, they also validate our modeling efforts. So thank you. They're also involved in that.
So my name is Eric Palaha, and I live at 25 Audubon Drive. So thank you for your summary here. But you brought up a chart earlier that said that, and you don't have to bring it up again, but it just pointed out that that residents would be receiving a notice of their new value. Currently, I believe that residents' values are a fraction or some portion of the full amount, yet their new values will reflect, I believe, the 100% amount. Is there going to be any indication on the notice itself that will indicate that, I mean, the numbers are going to be different. Is there anything that's going to say this is higher or this is lower, or is there some factor?
The assessments are going to be presented as the assessment as it is, and then it's also going to show the equalization rate, which is that percentage, and it's 5.5. 5.65%. So what that means is that your assessment reflects 5.65% of current market value. So we're going to show you the apples to apples. So we're going to do that math, divide your current assessment by that 5.65, so you are comparing it. We're also going to show you an estimated tax impact. The budget will not be passed. We have to use the existing mill rates, tax rates. But we'll show you estimation of if we were comparing this budget to this budget, your taxes would be this before, your taxes will be this after. And you know, that is not what your tax bill is going to be, but it's a best estimate that we can give at that time of when we send out those impact notices in March.
I would just like to remind everyone, if they look on their tax bills, if you get a tax bill, if it goes to your mortgage company, then you can always call up and ask for a tax bill, or you're more than welcome to go to the Village of Ossining or the Town of Ossining tax offices, the villages, the finance office, and get a copy of your tax bill. And on it, with the equalization rate, it tells you your estimated value. So your true value of your home right now. So you can tell a lot of times. If you remember at the beginning, Fernando would put my house up there and we watched it drop in value. So we had to stop doing that. So for my husband to be okay. Anyway, does anyone else have any more questions on the reassessment? Okay, does anybody have any questions on anything else that they want to talk about? We're going to talk about a couple of other items real quickly, and well, not real quickly, but we want to invite you all to next week's legislative meeting. We're going to be celebrating the Ossining Little League. I believe they're the 11 and 12-year-olds. And what they did was they won, Pat, was it second place?
Second in the state.
Second in the state of New York. I mean, our sports in our community are phenomenal, you know. So we'll come and celebrate with us at 7:30. Pat, there was an email going around that was 7, but it's 7:30. At 88 Spring Street, we'll be celebrating those young people. On the Tuesday, October 20th, and also at that meeting, we will also be opening every single one of our public hearings again, and still adjourning them. If you have any comments on any of the laws for the town of Ossining, the laws that we've been working on, which is wetlands, steep slopes, it's only for that, for the unincorporated. So please remember, we're the umbrella government for the Village of Ossining, 91% of the Village of Briarcliff, and the unincorporated area. We're the local government for the unincorporated area. So we have some new zoning laws going into effect. We'll be having our public hearings done. But on the 20th, on Tuesday the 20th, we will be having, at our work session, we'll be having a profile of our senior nutrition program. Many of you are aware, maybe not aware of this invaluable program that we have in Ossining. We have meals that go, like Meals on Wheels. We send meals home to people. We have people that go and pick people up and bring them to the community center for a little socialness and for their lunch and everything. And I think it's very important. And yes, and they call all the people with the "Are you okay?" And if you ever go in the community center and you see an R and a U and an OK, that's not Rook, it's "Are you okay?" So we also want to just update people that we have the majority of Lewis Angle Park is closed. It's been what they call sorry? Yeah, it's not winterized. We're doing some projects there. One of the things was if you ever sit in the park and you're at the concerts or you're sitting there with something on stage, there was like a smell. Well, we wanted to get rid of the smell, so we changed the sewer system that was underneath. That actually got finished today, and we're very, very proud of our highway department. We did it all in-house, and they did an excellent job. While we're also there, we're going to take the rest of the chain link fence out from where it ends at the restroom all the way around to the little parking lot and put those big giant boulders there. It's much more attractive, it gives easier access to the park, and it will still stop cars from going through onto the lawn or into the river, God forbid. We're still working on our project on the John Chavokas Spray Park at Lewis Angle Park, where we are going to be recirculating the water. We have different parts of that going into effect this month. And we're in Ryder Park. Ryder Park, we're putting a little new water main in. We found a water main break in Ryder Park. We thought everything was streams in there, and some of it was a water main break, so we'll be fixing that. And then at Cedar Lane Park, we'll be relighting after Sandy, when Con Ed came in, and believe it or not, when Con Ed came in and turned all the lights back on, they wouldn't turn certain parts of the park on because the lighting was done by not certified electricians maybe 50 or 60 years ago. And so we're going to be having that completed, and we're very excited about that. So, and we are contacting the high school art department because we had some vandalism in Lewis Angle Park, and they ripped open the ladies' room, restroom door, and it has a mural on it. And so we had to buy a new restroom, but the schools have, the art teachers have said they will come down and repair the mural so we have it back again. So we're very excited about having this all done. If you've been down at the waterfront, you'll notice that Harbor Square is about 4 feet higher than the park, and so they're putting in a retainage wall and some drainage behind it so that we don't take the water and become like a drainage dish. So now we're having that done, and they've already started that work down there. And we finished up our paving project. We had put money away because it's important that when we save money in the budget, and we save money from going from the county police to the village police, and we took that money and we put it into paving. So between that money and our CHIPS money, we didn't have to take out any loans or anything. For all our paving projects, we paved 5 roads this year, and one of the biggest one was Stormy Town Road, and if you've gone down it, you see a marked difference in that road. We also want to invite you to, on Thursday, October 15th, we'll be here at the library between 5:30 and 7:30, and I apologize. And Karen LaRocca Fells is the new library director here in Ossining, and she'll be here to do a social hour, 2 hours with you, so come down and meet her. And it's Thursday, October 15th from 5:30 to 7:30. That's, of course, after, on October 15th, you have gone to the annual senior fair at the Joseph G. Caputo Senior, it's a community center. I'm reading it right off the page. But it will be a senior fair. Senator David Carlucci and Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff have put this together. There'll be over 50 vendors there. We will be there. Fernando will be there. Fernando's people will be there to answer any questions you might have about the reassessment. We'll have some information about the town there too. So I'm sure there's a lot more going on in the community. We didn't know how long tonight would go on, so we just kept it at that for right now. But watch for more updates, and we are very, very thankful that the storm decided to go out to sea. So we can't imagine that we're still recuperating from Sandy. Thank you very much, and if no one has anything else to say, we can say good night. Oh, we're going to move into executive session. So the town board has to meet on a couple of things, so do I have a motion to move into executive session?
Motion to move to executive.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, thank you, and have a wonderful week and a weekend. And it's a Columbus Day weekend, so it's a 3-day weekend. Remember, we are closed on Monday in the town and village offices. And we will see you at Tuesday at the 88 Spring Street at our legislative meeting. And please come and join us as we celebrate the Little League. Thank you.